go back and look at primary 1.7. That's the notes page. I'm trying to figure out how to best get this information to you, make it accessible. Any feedback you have, so we're trying different ways to make it accessible so you can find things and maybe make the recordings more useful to you. Even though the recordings, in some sense, they're for the hybrid sections, I've been doing recordings for years without that as just a supplement to the class. What I've done here, the first part is not changed. It's simply what was there when we did the class last Wednesday. But the recordings, there's now links to the recordings. These are MP4 files. I'm probably just going to create MP4 files. I'm not going to create all the fancy stuff for displaying them inside the browser. They may not display properly inside your browser. You may need to download them. There is a free product called VLC, which if you need to know a pointer to it, write to me and I'll send you a pointer to it that works very well with these. But I think Microsoft Media Player, for example, will work, and other media players will. But for some reason, I know Firefox browser doesn't seem, it plays it, but doesn't. You get the visual, but not the audio. What I've done is edited that to break it up into 3 parts. I'm going to continue to do that. They're not necessarily going to be even, but they're going to be evenly divided, but they're going to be conceptually divided. So the first part is the intro part, then the object-oriented modeling concepts, and then when we worked in the example. The example part is quite long because of that whole time you and I were working together. Mostly they will be a lot shorter. So at any rate, I'm going to try that. And also the project archive. Everything I do in class will end up in that project archive, and I will link it from there. And so I will, once we're done here this evening, I will be, here we are on Primary 12. The recording is not ready yet. The project archive is not ready. Of course, we're in the process of doing them right now, and those will be ready, I hope, this evening, and have that ready so you can take a look at it and review and take a look at it as you will. So I'm going to try this, and please, again, your feedback would be enormously helpful. If it works or if you're confused about finding things, there's a lot of information here, and I hope it will be helpful to you if you do find it. And I want to make sure that you can find it, so it will be of help. Now, before I go any further, do y'all have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I was trying to import the quadratic formula program that you had uploaded, and I wasn't quite sure if I was doing something correctly or what that process was for that.
Oh, okay. The question is about importing the quadratic formula for the assignment 1. Let's do that. Fairly good one to do, as I may not have talked about that as explicitly. Let's try it. It's under assignments, isn't it? Sometimes I will provide you, in fact I will do that today for the lab, so let's take a look at this. If you click on it, depends on how you want, what kind of software you have installed. I don't have anything particularly installed here for unzipping anything, so it comes open in the Windows Explorer. You cannot use it directly in this form, as far as I know. You will have to unarchive, extract all the files. So I'm going to do that. One thing I was noticing might be an issue, it was an issue with a couple of folks, is make sure you know where you are unarchiving things, where you are putting your files. Whenever I give you something, it's going to be in a single folder. When you unarchive it, there will be a single folder, and your job is to remember where you put it. The documents folder, I typically don't put things there. I will this time, just because it's an easy place to put it. Mostly I put things in this class on the portable drive I've got down here, so that I can move things back and forth and they don't get lost on this machine. But in fact, let me go ahead and do that. Let me browse to the N drive, computer, the N drive, and we'll go to, this will take, I'm going to go ahead and go into my setup, which is where I have all the files for this course, the ones that are in the website. This is the website for this course, is in this folder. There's the extra folder, and I'll put it inside examples, which is actually where it started life. Okay there. And so it will extract into that folder. And so there it is. Now you notice the zip file itself is sitting there. That's where it started, but I now have a folder, and inside that are various files. If you look inside a folder that I give you for import, you'll notice there's a .idea file directory, and there's a .iml file. And those two are what make this an IntelliJ project. And then other things are laid out according to the needs of the project. Probably after your first round with IntelliJ, when you start it up, it's going to look like this. You'll be in the last project you started. You can change that. I'm eventually going to do that here. But typically it starts up in the last project you were in. And if you want to, I've got a new project. I'm not creating a new project. I already have it. So I'm going to import the project. I'm sorry, no, I'm going to open the, excuse me, I'm going to open the project. I said to import. You're actually just opening it, and I apologize. Import can also be done, but it's you actually open it. Now you've got to go run and find it, and this is so not too bad because it's sitting over in the examples. Something to look for. Let me come down here and make it more visible. See that little icon there? That's the IntelliJ icon. If it's really an IntelliJ project, it will have that icon showing. You can open anything as an IntelliJ project. IntelliJ will do its mightiest. I accidentally opened up my entire disk drive as an IntelliJ project. It doesn't hurt anything, it just adds a couple of files, but it took an awful long time to index everything and create its little list of files. It won't hurt anything if you do that, except that you won't have really a real working project then. So make sure when you unzip, make sure to look for that icon. And once highlight that and then say OK. And you always have a choice of replacing the current file, the current project in the window, or opening up a new window. It's up to you which one you want to do. Usually I'm going to say this window, simply open it up, and there you have it. So thank you for bringing it up, because this will be part of the lab too. I'm giving you something in lab that you're going to download and open. I'm using the word import, and I apologize. I repeat a lot of things from previous semesters. I modify them a little bit, and I try to scrub them out. But there was a point in time when we had to import the projects. There was a problem of incompatibilities, and we could not get rid of it, especially with the Macs, and we seem to be beyond that. So it looks like opening projects is safer, and it's a lot more convenient. So anyway, but make sure you unzip it. Make sure you know where you unzipped it, because that's the most frustrating thing in the world, is trying to find that thing if you don't know where it is. And then the last thing is, make sure you actually open the IntelliJ project. It's already an IntelliJ project, and then all will be fine. Anything else? Sir?
So in working on assignment 1,
Mm-hmm.
we get this file, it's a zip file, we open it up, and there are already files in there, some of them already have stuff in it. What are we
Okay.
You do the files that have something.
After I tell you this, I want you to also go back, not here and right now, it's multi-process, but anyway, and read the instructions, and I hope you'll see that I told you. But if I didn't, if there is still something unclear, let me know, because try to be complete. I know sometimes it's very hard to read these. The quadratic equation is where you do all your work. Everything you do will go in there. I did provide some test programs, and you're going to have those today. And this is, there's a bunch of stuff over here that you can ignore. Just, you know, behind the green curtain, don't look at it. Just ignore that stuff. But this is the one that you want. This, and actually ignore this, you just run it. And when you run it, it will tell you some things work and some things don't. Right now it has a whole bunch of errors because you haven't defined any of the stuff in here yet. And let me say a couple of things. If you read up here, it's going to test your accessors. It's going to test setters. And it's going to look at your instance variables to make sure that you've got the right number of them and that they have the right, that they're all private. Do not add a discriminant variable. You'll get yelled at for that. This will say no. You get A, you get B, you get C. That's all you get. And there's a good reason for that, because if you put a discriminant variable in there, you can get off track, actually. There is a discriminant function. But so you can sort of tell what they're doing in testing, and it will give you messages back that I hope are reasonably clear, and you'll get a chance at that today in lab to see what kind of messages it's going to give you back. And again, let me know. We're using this package I created, not because I don't like the standard packages out there, but because it's a little tricky putting them into IntelliJ. And I thought this was easier for everybody. You had a question?
So we run our quadratic equation class through the test quadratic equation.
Yeah, this is the program. You're not actually creating a program. You're not actually creating a program here. You're creating just a class. So it just sits there in all of its glory, and there's not much you can do about it. What this is a program that runs it through its paces. It says, okay, if I call the constructor with, say, 10, 5, and 7, will those be the values I get from it when I look there? Sounds pretty basic, but that's, if that doesn't work, then nothing else will.
So how can I turn it into you now? Finished? I just email it the whole
No. Again, let me check. Okay, it's supposed to say submit through the D2L, and I will put it up. I hadn't expected anybody to have it quite ready this soon, but I'll put up a.
I was gonna ask because I actually already did that, and I actually wrote the class and the program itself. Does that, I
Does
can
it?
submit that, or I gotta go through this?
If you zip the project folder, what I'm looking for is the project folder. So what I'm expecting is that you submit to me a project folder, an IntelliJ project folder, and that I could open that and run it. Now, what I will probably do, I'll tell you how this one I'll grade. I will actually probably just grab your quadratic equation class and put it into my project and run my test program. Now, if it fails the test program, you get points off, because I'm testing things that are important. Did you make all your variables private? Do you have extra instance variables? You're not to have those, okay? And that will be checked by this program. Those are parts of there will be, notice it says here, 3 instance variables. Not 4, not 2, but 3. And I've already told you in class, those instance variables better be private. So those are the kinds of things I'm checking.
So if we run it and all the tests, in this case 16 tests are successful, we're going to get 100 if we submit it to you?
Probably so. I won't say for sure, because I may look at it and see something weird, but probably so. Very, very likely.
There's, so you don't have like sets
Three accessor, an accessor, two accessors. Yeah, there's no setters in here.
Okay, some that don't do anything.
So don't put any, I may check if they're in there or not, but if I don't ask for them, sometimes there's a reason not to have them. Sometimes it's just to keep it clean.
So
Uh,
don't worry about
but
putting
if-
centers.
Yeah, if I don't ask for them and I didn't ask for them here, don't put them in. And I'm not sure, sometimes I do check if you put them in, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I count the methods, and I count how many methods you put in there, and and I might on this one. Most of the time I don't do that, because sometimes you may want to add a method just to help. Yes?
In the previous class, we had to do this big, long, comment that showed who we were, which professor we were. Do you want something like that?
Oh, I should put this in there. No, I don't want a big long thing. What I would like is every time you touch a file, you should put a comment in there with your name in it and said either I touched it, I changed it, or whatever is appropriate. I would like your name in there. We will talk some more about documentation. My main reason for you to have your name in there is I end up usually getting, what I've got, 35, 40 people here. I take all of your zip file, all of your projects, and dump them into a huge directory. They all have your name on them. But, sometimes I get confused, and I'll have picked up I may pick up the wrong one, or forget to get yours, and I'm looking at somebody else's, and it really, really, really helps all of us to have your name in there so I know who I'm grading. And so that would be a big help. We will, beyond that, I think that's enough. And I'd really like that whenever you actually touch a file and make a change in it, is that you put your name in it. And that's usually what's asked for. In terms of what you put in there, well, I'm telling you what to put in there, so I'm not sure how much documentation. And you'll see I'm a little lax on documentation on some things myself. So we know what a get method does. We know what a set method does. If there's a surprise there, then we put something there. Next. Somebody, I thought I saw a hand waving. Oh.
I just downloaded the quadratic, but my computer's kind of weird about it. The way it's already unzipped and everything. But
I don't know.
It's like
Let me check that in lab, okay? I think that weird things like that. Remember, if it's in Windows, it may not actually be.
well, mine's on a Mac.
It's on a Mac. Okay, you're gonna have to get help from them. If there's any Mac, maybe at lab time we can put out the word to some of the other Mac people. As I say, I don't have a Mac to work with, so I'm not sure exactly what it does sometimes. Some of these systems try to be more helpful than they should be, to tell you the truth.
I've got another question. In reading the book, it said program exercise 810 on page 332.
Oh,
And I just couldn't find that.
Oh, yeah.
oh. That, it actually won't help you, even if I did tell you where it is, and it's probably in chapter 10. This is another, I apologize, that was, as it says down here, the page may vary depending on the edition of the book, and in fact, actually the chapters have changed too since I put this together, but actually I've completely rewrote the problem, so it's a completely different problem now. And that's more for saying, well, I was inspired by this problem in the book. I've forgotten which I think it's chapter 10 now is what happened. I apologize. Yeah, that's I don't like the changes and additions any better than y'all do, because it's trivial changes and they just seem to change the chapter numbers and stuff like that, which content doesn't particularly. Sir.
And you said we submit this to D2L, right?
I'll have I had not anticipated needing the Dropbox so quickly, so I will get that up this evening. But there will be a Dropbox there. Everybody know the new name is no longer D2L,
Brightspace.
Brightspace. So we'll still call it D2L Brightspace, but we were taking bets of what would happen if we only talked about Brightspace, if anybody would ever find it. Anyway, okay, let me mute for a sec. Okay. What we're going to talk about today is start talking about inheritance, and it may have been mentioned before. You may have gotten to it a little bit. I don't know. Different 2301s, sometimes different instructors will offer some beginning peek at this or mention it. This first part, what I'm going to talk about right now, are concepts of inheritance. It is quite a bit different from what we would think of inheritance of traits from our parents or inheritance of property from our parents. I will use a biological analogy because that's one of the ones that's closest to actually to this notion is biological taxonomy, but and I hope that will help you understand how this is working. This is probably the thing that makes object-oriented programming is the notion of inheritance. What we have done up till this point is something some people call object-based programming, or sometimes modular programming. It's still a powerful step, but the notion of inheritance adds in something new, and can be misused very easily. In fact, one of the first texts we used for teaching object-oriented programming at this level had some perfectly awful examples, things you should never do. So we'll try, Liang is much more careful and much better guide. So I'm trying to follow him as closely as possible. I'm going to start by discussing basic concepts, and then we'll move on to an example, and we'll look at the example in the book. The example in the book is a long-running one, and I hope we'll continue using it at least through the middle of the course. We've already talked about modeling objects. We look at the world, we model the world, we describe similar objects, groups of similar objects, and those are what we call classes. Classes are groups of similar objects. And what we describe, we abstract, we pick out those characteristics that are important that we're trying to deal with. We may look at multiple different classes and we notice that they may have features in common with each other. And it's sometimes helpful to look at those common features and ask how can we make our life easier by taking into account this commonality. Maybe we have common features, we only have to represent them once. Maybe there's common behavior, we only have to program that once, we only have to create a single method. Sometimes we may even discover things that work in both cases. We may discover a commonality that we didn't realize existed before if we examine it closely. Or sometimes we may need to subdivide existing classes and say, this is too big, I need to subdivide it, be more specific so I can work better with the subgroups. It's probably something that you don't realize because you only see a little piece of it, but for some peculiar reason, all of the faculty and administration and staff are also in the OWL Express system. So why, I don't know, but we are there. And that's sort of this huge conglomeration of people in there, which, yes, we're all people, we all have names, we all have addresses and social security numbers and all of that kind of thing, but when it comes down to it, there's an awful lot we don't have in common. And so, for example, it would be really useful in my listing to have my office number there and my phone, my campus office number, but that wouldn't make much sense for most of you all. Some of you maybe work on campus, and in that case, this begins to make a little more sense. But there really are subclasses, subgroups of people on campus, and it's important, the specific characteristics of those subgroups are important. So we identify subclasses as subgroups that it's interesting or helpful to identify those and work with those specifically. We, as human beings, seem to love to classify things. And not only do we love to classify things, we then love to break those classes down into subgroups. It's just something we do over and over again. And we especially like to divide things into two. Take one thing, divide it into two, take those, divide it into two, and so on. We're not going to do that much here, except to keep things simple, but we do love to do that. And in the branch, what's called taxonomy, the science of classification, there are scientific principles which guide this. And they would help us probably. And you'll learn more about that as you go into the data structures course and talk about data modeling, and you go into the software engineering course and you talk more about data modeling and system modeling at a higher level. You'll talk more about the science of how you extract this information, you look at the situation out there, and you classify what you see. In biology, I'm using this because most everybody has somewhere along the line had a biology course, and you have, even though you may have buried this knowledge at some point, you may have talked about phyla, genera, species, and other groups like that. And I wanted to use a particular animal that's of particular interest to all of us. That's us, humans. And we do have a classification. We're in the kingdom Animalia. We're animals. It means we're not plants and we're not various kinds of microbes. It keeps getting subdivided. We belong to a phylum, which is Chordata, and I'll explain a little bit about this. This is not a biology course, but I want to give some idea of what that. But there's a subclass of that, a subgroup of chordates called mammals, and we're part of that. A subgroup of the mammals called primates, and we're part of that. And then in that, then it gets a little Homininidae, which is a family. I'm not absolutely positive who else is in that with us. Is that the great apes? I think, okay, the great apes. And then there's Hominini, which is the tribe, which luckily we didn't have to deal with when I was in biology. Be one more level. And then our genus is Homo, and species is sapiens, which means wise human or something of that sort. So classification, groups and subgroups, and each smaller group has more characteristics. We used to have something went wrong today, and I don't have things up there I thought I had. I had a slide in here in between. Chordata, means you have various features, the main one of which is a notochord, which in our case sort of has disappeared and it's become part of our brain. You also have a hollow dorsal nerve cord, which becomes our spine and our brain. And all of this, a lot of this goes back to our embryonic development. And if you ever study that, it's kind of amazing as you watch all of these things develop. But we share that with a wide range of creatures, including lampreys and sharks and such. We do not share, there are animals out there that are not chordates. All the insects are not in this category, nor are sponges or various other things of that sort, but they are not in that category. But we're in a subclass called mammals, and which is characterized by, for example, mammary glands, for example, the other thing, and there are chordates that are not mammals. Fish, for example, fish are chordates, but they're not mammals. Primates, that includes monkeys, includes us, includes the great apes. Anybody know what else it includes? If you go down to the zoo, you can see them. If you're real lucky, you can see them at the Atlanta Zoo. They're really hard to see because they're very, very, very shy creatures.
Lemurs.
Lemurs, yeah, lemurs. Most, I guess, all from Madagascar. But they're night creatures and very shy. So those are primates. Mammals that are not primates: bears, dogs, cats. All of those are mammals. So we have subgroups and subgroups, and we classify. And this mentions some of the ones that and some of the characteristics. One of my interesting ones is the 3 middle ear bones. If you remember the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. Things like that distinguish us.